Peace, family. 3 steps to reprogramming your identity. Make sure to watch this video to the very, very end, all right? MJ the Mastermind checking in. We're back with another video. Listen, if you're somebody that loves... Oh, it's 11:11. Haha. Oh, it just turned 11:12. But listen, if you're somebody that loves personal development, reality creation, manifestation, and all things in between, make sure to follow the channel for consistent videos on those topics, right? Let's jump right into it. So the 3 steps to reprogramming your identity. This is going to be fun. So the first one is you got to define the identity, right? The first step is you got to get clear on what the identity is, okay? And the only way that you can get clear on the identity is first having clarity on what your vision is, because your vision will give you clarity on what version of you is required for the fulfillment of that vision. And the version of you required for the fulfillment of your vision is ultimately the identity that you want to define, that you want to have clarity on, so you can work your way towards becoming that version of yourself and living in alignment with that identity. All right. Now, one of my favorite quotes of all time, y'all, is you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life who you are. Okay? You don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life who you are. So the version of who you are, like the version of yourself that is required to achieve what it is that you want to achieve, is more important than the actions, the things that are built on top of that, right? Because the actions that you take are a representation of your identity, okay? And the problem that a lot of people have is that because they don't have the right identity, the actions that they take are out of alignment, right? And a lot of people are driven by programs, right? And these are habits of thought, habits of behaviors, actions that are consistently taken, but they're tied to an older version of themselves. So what ends up happening is people continue to repeat the same programs that got them to where they are, but that's not going to get them to where they want to go. Okay? So you have to stop being driven by programs, okay? And always remember that identity is more important than activity, okay? So let's take, for example, somebody that's obese or they're overweight and they want to become healthier, right? Well, the first thing that needs to happen is they need to start thinking like a healthier version of themselves. They need to adopt that identity, right? They need to define that version of themselves. Like, how much do they weigh, right? How do they look, right? Define the identity first. Define that picture. And then, okay, what are that person's habits, right? What are their behaviors? What are their principles? What are their standards? This is all part of defining that identity, okay? And this is actually one of the most important steps, y'all, is actually sitting down with yourself, taking time, and actually writing it out. Like, what is that version of myself, or what is that identity's habits, standards, principles that they live by? Like, what do they stand on, right? What are the non-negotiables? Okay, so this is all part of that step 1, very, very critical step. Define the identity. All right, now step 2 is you have to take aligned action. Okay, you have to take aligned action with that identity, because it's not until you actually start taking aligned action that you actually start to physically rewire your brain. Okay, because when you start taking aligned action, and the actions, habits, and behaviors that are in alignment with that identity that's required, or that version of yourself, what ends up happening is it starts to build new neural pathways in your brain. And these new neural pathways in your brain, what happens is it starts to make that behavior slightly easier to take next time. Okay? Right? And this is how habits are formed over time. Like, the more you do something, the easier it is for you to do it automatically. It just becomes a part of your identity. So taking that aligned action is super, super important. Start living in alignment with that identity. Okay? Now, the thing is, guys, is that there will be tests, right? The universe is going to test you. Okay? So there's going to be things that come about for you to really choose who you are. Like, choose the version of yourself and the identity that you want to be. So even in those tough times, right, where you may be getting pulled in certain directions, you always got to revert back to what's the identity that's required, what's the version of you that's required for you to ultimately achieve what it is that you want to achieve. Because one action that's out of alignment, one decision that's out of alignment with that identity sets you back. Whether you can see it or not, whether you can tell or not, you may think everything is the same moving forward, but have no doubt about it, one decision that's out of alignment is a setback. Because remember, your subconscious mind forgets nothing. Everything is recorded in your subconscious mind. Okay? You can't hide from, the decisions and the actions that you take. Right? Everything is recorded and affects you on some level. Okay? So it's very, very important that we're getting into step 3, right? The power of being consistent and repetition, right? Step 3 is repetition, y'all. The identity becomes a lifestyle, okay? The identity becomes a part of who you are, right? It becomes a part of, you don't even have to think about it. It becomes a part of your program, your baseline program, right? But we only get there through consistent and repetition of taking the actions that are in alignment with that identity. Okay? All right, now this is very, very important to not fall off track. To not fall off track, to not slip up, but to continue to be congruent. Okay? It's a never-ending process. Right? As far as defining that identity, taking aligned action, and, the practice of repetition, it's a never-ending process until you want to change your identity again. Okay? Yeah. Until life calls for a different version of you. At that point in time, then, you have to go back to the drawing board and redefine that new identity as well, right? But if you're somebody that, may be having an identity crisis, right? You have your old program, the old version of yourself pulling you in one direction. You have the new you that is required, the new version of you that's calling you to step up to the plate so that you can actually, receive the things that you're destined for. And sometimes we have these two versions of us pulling at us, right? So you have to choose. You have to make a decision. And it's not just one decision. You have to make hundreds if not thousands of decisions every day, right? Well, you make one decision. Make one decision of the action that you're, like which version, which identity you choose, and make the choices that are in alignment with that daily, right? Define the identity, step 1. Step 2, take aligned action. Step 3, practice repetition, right? You do those 3 things, and you will start to reprogram yourself, reprogram your identity, okay? And as a bonus, I'm going to give you guys, visualize it. Run that slide over and over. And when I say slide, it's just a snapshot of a version of reality. Run that movie over and over and over again in your head as well, of that version of yourself, of that identity. See yourself being that version of yourself and that identity. Because remember, now your mind doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So continue to run that slide, run that visualization, and see yourself as that version of yourself and as that identity. And that will also help in the reprogramming process. All right? Love y'all, man. Like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you if you watch this video. Thank you. I hope this was valuable to you. I hope that you implement these things into your life. And, if you really start to see changes, let me know. Would love to, catch up with you. All right? But keep tapping in, everybody, man. Keep continuing on this journey of becoming your best self, raising your frequency, your energy, and your vibration, and continuing to gain knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And, I'm going to keep adding value to you all. All right? Peace and abundance.